a playbook on how to disrupt the disruptors. Joining us is Heidrick & Struggles partner and co-author of Goliath's Revenge, How Established Companies Turn the Tables on Digital Disruptors, Scott Snyder. Thanks for being here, Scott.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I got the book right here in my hand. It feels nice, but talk to me about what's inside the book, because you highlighted a couple examples, from MasterCard to Cisco, of all these major companies that have been facing digital disruption.
Sure.
What are the keys to actually fighting back?
Yeah, it seems a little contrarian, right? But the reason we wrote the book is we actually think incumbent companies are sitting on all these legacy advantages, like customer base, data sets, IP, brand reach and trust, things that startups would actually dream to have.
Yep.
But in some cases, they don't unlock the value that they could in a digital world. So we think that comes down to leadership, organizational structure, and culture to be able to run at two speeds. So both innovate around your business today, because that's important to stay in the game, but also be able to innovate for the future and change the game. And those businesses that can take their assets, run at two speeds, are the ones that will separate themselves.
So Scott, I'm wondering if, because you mentioned some of those assets earlier, do you think then that these larger, well-established companies are actually in a better position to be those innovators than maybe some of those new, smaller startups?
I think so. Having been in a couple of startups and craved those assets, like could we get 1 million customers or patients or data that could feed our algorithms or our new platforms? So in many cases, it's why you see large players partnering with the innovators on the outside, because they have platforms that can scale. But in many cases, they can't run as fast as some of the disruptors. So we think there's some interesting marriages that will happen in the future, and you're already seeing those along the way.
In the book, you bring up the 6 rules of Goliath's Revenge. You want to highlight what you think is most important there?
Yeah, rather than go through all 6 rules, I think it boils down to a few things. One is the 2-speed innovation model. And the first speed is you've got to engage your employees to feel like there's a culture of innovation, especially young talent. They want to feel empowered to innovate around your current business. And then provide protection, and this is where the courage, the patient capital comes in, because a lot of large companies are pressured by the street to be short-term focused, have the courage to say, some of these big swings we're going to take, they might not all work, but we have to take them. Otherwise, we're going to be irrelevant in 4 to 5 years. So having that balance. Rule 5 is value talent over technology, something at Heidrick we think a lot about, both from the finding the talent, but also we actually advise leaders and teams on how to do that. So that's not only what we call the 3D roles, designers, developers, data scientists, which everybody's clamoring for, and you got to have enough of those, but the future roles, like product incubation managers that can experiment, scale things, or behavioral scientists, or AI specialists that live across your business. So we talk about that in the book. What are those new roles you need?
Got it.
So how does this all play into employment and actual people? Because it sounds like a lot of these consolidations and a lot of this technology at the end of the day is going to equal less jobs for folks with their hands. What do you feel about that? And is there anything involved in your book or any advice that you would give to companies that may be struggling with the reality that, hey, I may have to cut some jobs here? Yeah,
I think it's a great point, because there's a lot of hysteria around AI and automation, and this is going to displace workers, and we got to reskill our whole workforce. I think if we shift the conversation from automation to augmentation, how are we going to augment and multiply the effect of humans? And I take financial advice as a great example. The thought was robo-advisors are going to displace wealth managers, but that's not happening. In many ways, what's happening is wealth managers can now spend more time focusing on the emotion, the life situations of their customer. Do they have a sick parent? Do they have a kid that needs to go back to school or move back home, instead of crunching numbers and running portfolios in the background that robos can do? I think it's that pairing that has the potential to raise us all to another level.
All right. So maybe not all blockbusters will die a blockbuster. Perhaps they can turn things around. Goliath's Revenge is the name of the book. Scott Snyder, thanks so much.
Thank you guys for having me on. Appreciate it.